I'm going to raise it since Lisa's not here. Good morning to everybody. Thank you for being here this morning. For those of you that are keeping track, this will be day 20 days since the Democrats recklessly shut down the United States government. And the Democrats are making some very costly history here. Don't lose that in all that's happening. This is now the third longest shutdown in history. And when you look at it carefully, it is now already the longest full shutdown of all time. You had an example in 2018 and you had one back in 1995 that were longer, but they were partial shutdowns because they only affected a part of the federal government. This is everything. And it's also important for us to note, this is the first time in history that any party has had the audacity to shut down the government over a totally clean, nonpartisan continuing resolution. This is a political stunt, and it's the first time it's been done, and it is the most costly, most selfish, most dangerous political stunt in the history of the United States Congress, because as we have stood here day after day after day explaining all the Americans who are being harmed by this nonsense. And the Senate Democrats have zero shame about this. They don't have any shame at all about the pain that they're inflicting upon hardworking families, upon soldiers and law enforcement officers and veterans and the elderly and the disabled and women, infants, and children. Services to all those categories and paychecks to those folks are being stalled because Democrats are playing games. Today, Leader Thune in the Senate will once again bring the clean, nonpartisan CR to the floor for a vote. They will have another chance. Democrats will have their 12th opportunity to pass the bill. It is the same bill that they themselves supported just 7 months ago, and Chuck Schumer gave impassioned speeches on the floor about how it was the only option. And don't forget, they did it 13 times under the Biden administration. Very similar measures, but not now. Something's changed. Over the weekend, we saw what it was all about. The Democrats made crystal clear that this is about politics. The politics were on full display. The politics, the spectacle, is what the mobs, the crowds, the rallies this week were all about. It was quite ironic, though. The irony was very glaring. They called it the No Kings Rally. But the great irony, of course, that we pointed out over and over was if President Trump was a king, the government would be open. If President Trump was a king, he would have closed the national parks and the national mall, so they couldn't have had the rally out here. By the way, that's what President Obama did during the shutdown in 2013, closed all the parks and the national mall. Here in Washington, you had Senators Bernie Sanders and Chris Murphy and Cory Booker and others marching in the streets. Now, these are the same senators who voted over and over to shut down the legislative branch and hand the reins to President Trump. They're decrying the situation that they themselves created. This has always been about the spectacle. Chuck Schumer himself joined the spectacle in New York City. And it's interesting to note his activities there. He was standing side by side some of the most radical groups that maybe ever assembled on U.S. soil. They openly advertised as co-sponsors of the event in New York City the Communist Party USA, the Democrat Socialist of America, the Freedom Socialist Party, the Young Communist League of New York, many others. Do we need any further evidence? They're not hiding this. They're out in the open. They're not shy about it, because this is the core constituency of the modern Democratic Party. These are objective facts. Look at what's happening. Open your eyes. It is exactly why Chuck Schumer is pandering in this whole charade. We've explained from the very beginning, this shutdown is about one thing and one thing alone: Chuck Schumer's political survival. Now, I noted on Friday, the lead organizer of the rallies this weekend issued an open threat to Democrats. Quote, "The cavalry is coming in on October 18th, and they're either going to be celebrating with you, or they're going to be calling for new leadership." Now, that's a direct threat to Chuck Schumer, and he heard the message. And so did Hakeem Jeffries in the House. And that's why neither of them were here doing their jobs. Instead, they were out in New York and California. They were catering to the same radical base that is just days away from electing an open Marxist as mayor of New York City. And now that Chuck Schumer has had his spectacle, he's had his big protest against America, this is our plea. We're asking, and I think everybody in this room and everybody watching, listening to our voices this morning should be hoping that he is finally now ready to go to work and end this shutdown and stop inflicting pain on the American people. Republicans have been working. We are ready. We've been doing this. It's been over a month now. We passed our responsible short-term solution to keep the government open while we just simply finish our work to fund the government openly and transparently, and Republicans are completely united on that front. On the other side, Democrats can't even agree amongst themselves. You got different subgroups among them. You've got a few reasonable Democrats who know shutdowns hurt the people, and they've already voted for our bill. They want to keep the government open. Then you've got others desperate to prop up the failures of Obamacare with no reforms whatsoever to make the program more affordable. That's what we're fighting for. And you've got AOC calling for her own negotiations on live TV, and you've got Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries still unable to articulate what it is they need to reopen the government. It illustrates the point once again. This was never about a solution. It was about creating an issue. Now that Democrats have had their protest and publicity stunts, I just pray that they come to their senses and end this shutdown and reopen the government this week. Republicans are waiting, the American people are waiting, and we are ready to act. As evidence of just how united Republicans are in this fight, I've asked two of our prominent leaders in the House Republican Conference. I've got House Freedom Caucus Chairman Andy Harris. Dr. Harris is also an appropriator, and House Freedom Caucus Policy Chair Chip Roy of Texas. I'll turn it over to Dr. Harris first.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Earlier this month, the House Freedom Caucus made history by hosting our first press call held with the Speaker. And today we're doing it again, standing shoulder to shoulder at a full leadership press conference as part of the united Republican front against this Democrat-led shutdown. On the Sunday morning shows yesterday, the Democrats tried once again, unconvincingly, to say that they are not to be blamed for the shutdown. But the reason that the government remains shut down is becoming crystal clear to Americans. It's because Senate Democrats have chosen to pander to their radical base instead of doing their job for the American people. Senate Democrats have had the opportunity to vote 11 times for the House-passed bill that pays our troops, pays our law enforcement, and pays our air traffic controllers now, and would immediately reopen the government. Instead, they've sided with the same radical activists who filled the streets this weekend chanting "No Kings" at rallies backed by the Communist Party USA and socialists, the same people who claim to hate power while demanding more control over your life. The question before us now is simple. Will at least 5 Senate Democrats relent and break from their party's left-wing fringe and vote to reopen the government today? Let's also be honest about what the Democrats are really fighting for. They're demanding taxpayer-funded health care for illegal immigrants. They want to eliminate work requirements for welfare for able-bodied adults who could work but choose not to. And they're defending hundreds of billions of dollars in continued corporate welfare for big, profitable health insurance companies that have already made a fortune off Obamacare with the Biden bonuses that the Democrats scheduled to expire at the end of this year. House Republicans have already done their job. The only thing standing between America and a reopened government is a handful of Senate Democrats too afraid of their activist base to do the right thing. But it's time for those 5 Senate Democrats to show some courage, stand against their leadership, but with hard-working Americans, and vote to reopen the government. I want to close by thanking Speaker Johnson for his leadership in standing firm against the radical left's unreasonable demands and for standing with the American people. Thank you, and I'll turn this over to Congressman Chip Roy.
Thanks, Andy, and I want to thank the Speaker and the leadership team and the President for their leadership during these last several weeks. I'd say it's good to see you, but I mean, honestly, I'd rather be in Texas. But I'm happy to be here today with these guys. No one disputes one obvious fact. It is Democrats who have chosen not to fund government. Can we at least establish that truth, right? It is, in fact, the truth. And the question is why? And you saw it on Saturday. It was basically for a political rally for cover for Chuck Schumer, who's in his own political battle in New York. That's the truth. And the irony of this is this No Kings rally. What are we actually talking about? I mean, it wasn't President Trump, but Democrats who tried to make us take a shot or lose our job. It wasn't President Trump, but Democrats who were burning our cities to the ground in 2020 and attacking police officers. It wasn't President Trump, but it was Democrats who want to push boys into girls' locker rooms, who want to force surgeries upon children. It wasn't President Trump, but Democrats who pushed fraudulent mail-in ballots in 2020 and left the elections in question. And then when Americans dared to question that stuff, they sought to jail the American people. They weaponized the government against the American people. And now they want to turn around and say they're going to have a No Kings rally? This is the dying breath of a bankrupt party, in my humble opinion. All too happy to shut down the government and then have a Chicago teacher walk around with this symbol against her neck. Somebody tell me how that's appropriate. Where are the Democrats that are crying out about how horrific that was? And by the way, where are the Democrats who are calling out the Attorney General in Virginia for calling on the death of children of a political opponent? Where is Abigail Spanberger, one of our former colleagues running for governor of Virginia? Do they not have the courage to call out fellow Democrats for that absurdity? The truth is, we have a president. We don't have a king. We have a president who loves our country, who rightly said yesterday that he's working his ass off to make this country great. He is correct. Brokering peace deals in the Middle East, rebuilding our military, rooting out DEI and critical race theory, declaring cartels as terrorist organizations, focusing on Antifa, defunding the World Health Organization, getting us out of UNRWA, making sure that we target the Southern Poverty Law Center, who are, going after people like our friends at the Family Research Council or ultimately Charlie Kirk, securing the border, passing the Lake and Riley Act. These are the things the American people want us to do, not shutting down the government for political rallies. And the truth is, the Marxists, the radicals, and the Islamists, the Democratic Party promoted this weekend. They cannot handle the truth. The truth is that there is a king, and that king is Jesus. And the president has been willing to say it. His administration has been willing to say it. And Charlie Kirk was willing to say it, and he got killed for it. Democrats are using this ridiculous political exercise to hold hostage the government of the American people, pretending it's about health care. Meanwhile, it is Democrats who've been holding the American people hostage to an unconscionably broken health care system that they themselves created. We're saying no more. We're the party that's standing up for hardworking Americans who can't afford health care, who can't afford insurance. We're not for giving more money to the insurance companies. We're not for a $400 billion blank check to big corporate America and corporate welfare, like my friend from Maryland said. We're not for health care for illegal aliens, but for standing up for American citizens to be able to afford health care, to carry forward the president's good policies like short-term limited duration plans and other ways that people can actually go and afford health care. We're for law and order. We're not for hate-filled lawlessness. We're for common sense, not radical surgeries on our children without parental consent to say a boy can be a girl. We're for a message of hope, hope born in the freedom of those who fought to give it to us through their blood and also through the blood of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Republicans are working to make America great again. Democrats have been trying to run out the clock. And for Hakeem and Chuck, their time is up. I'll turn it over to Steve.
Thank you, Chip. Well, you can see Republicans are united strongly in working to open the government back up. We all voted to prevent a government shutdown, and that bill went through the House weeks ago on almost exclusively a party line vote. And since then, for weeks and weeks, that bill has been in the Senate, where Democrats, led by Chuck Schumer, consistently have voted to shut the government down.